You know, this is one of those stories that honestly feels like it's been ripped straight from a techno thriller. We're talking about a massive clash of principles, politics, and power. And at the center of it all, one of the most advanced AIs on the planet, a tech company that decided to take a stand, and a military operation that would push the boundaries of modern warfare.
So, let's just get right to the craziest part of this whole thing. On February 27, 2026, the White House officially bans an AI company, basically calling it a threat to national security. But then, get this, just hours later, reports start flying that the US military is using that exact same AI in airstrikes against Iran. So, how on earth is that even possible? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind a bit.
All right, so to really get what's going on, we have to start with the company at the heart of this storm, Anthropic. See, they didn't just build one of the most powerful AI models in the world, they actually tried to build it with a conscience. And that one decision, that single idea, is what set them on a collision course with the most powerful military on Earth.
Yeah, Anthropic isn't just your typical AI lab. Their whole reason for being is safety. Their main AI, Claude, was designed from the ground up to have this built-in ethical framework. The goal was to make it helpful and, harmless. But what happens when the Pentagon comes knocking and wants to use that harmless tool for warfare?
Okay, so this slide really gets to the heart of the problem. It's pretty simple, really. Anthropic drew a couple of red lines in the sand. They said, number one, you absolutely cannot use our AI for mass surveillance on American citizens, and number two, no using it to power fully autonomous weapons. Killer robots that fire without a human ever giving the okay. And the Pentagon's response? Basically, nope, we need it for all lawful purposes, and we're not going to let you restrict us.
And you got to hear how Anthropic framed their side of this. In a pretty gutsy interview, their CEO, Dario Amodei, he didn't back down an inch. He basically said this wasn't about being defiant, it was about being patriotic. He felt like they were the ones standing up for American values, even if it meant taking on the US government.
So you can probably guess what happened next, right? Taking a stand like that put the company square in the sights of the White House. This wasn't some quiet disagreement over a contract anymore. It was about to explode into a very public and very political fight. And the response from President Trump was, well, it was exactly what you might expect. He went on Truth Social and just unloaded, calling Anthropic a left-wing woke company. He claimed their ethical rules were putting American lives, troops, and national security at risk. He really turned it into a political firestorm.
So the administration drops the hammer. They officially label Anthropic a supply chain risk. Now, you have to understand, that's a label normally saved for foreign companies that are seen as a threat, not a tech company based right here in America. The message to the public was loud and clear. Anthropic is out. The government is done with them.
But here's the twist. That public message, it wasn't the whole story. Not even close. While all this political drama was playing out on the news, something very different was happening behind the scenes, inside classified government networks. Anthropic's AI was already tangled up in some of the most critical US military operations.
In fact, get this. The first time we know the military used Claude AI wasn't even in Iran. It was a month earlier, back in January 2026, during a top-secret operation to capture the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. So this wasn't some experiment. This AI was already in the field doing real work.
So you're probably wondering, how is that even possible with all the fighting going on? Well, the military wasn't buying Claude directly from Anthropic. They had a kind of side door through a big data firm called Palantir that works closely with the government. The AI was already embedded in their secure systems, helping with, everything. It was analyzing intelligence, helping identify targets, even running simulations of battles. It had become a really important tool.
And the place they were using it, it couldn't have been a more intense situation. At that exact moment, Iran was basically collapsing. The country's infrastructure was failing. There were reports of tens of thousands of people being killed in government crackdowns. This was not a video game. This was an incredibly fragile, explosive reality where every single decision could mean life or death.
Okay, so let's just recap how fast this all went down, because it's wild. In January, the first whispers about Claude being used in Venezuela pop up. Then, on February 27th, President Trump issues the official ban. The very next day, Anthropic CEO gives that defiant interview. And then, boom, March 1st, the news breaks. Claude was used in the Iran strikes, literally hours after it was banned.
So that leaves us with this massive question, right?
Why would the military defy a direct order from the president? The answer might be more complicated than just saying they broke the rules. It might actually have to do with the nature of the AI itself, this incredibly powerful and maybe unpredictable tool they had started to depend on.
And this is where things get, well, kind of creepy. We tend to think of AI as this super logical, predictable thing. But how does it actually behave when you put it in a crisis, when you ask it to make decisions about war and peace? Well, some researchers decided to find out, and they put a bunch of these AIs into war game simulations to see what they do.
And look at what they found. It's pretty stunning. This chart from their study shows that more often than not, the AI models chose to escalate the conflict. They didn't always go for the peaceful diplomatic option. A lot of the time, they chose to make military threats, and in a surprising number of cases, they jumped straight to violent escalation.
Okay, this is the part that will absolutely blow your mind. The researchers actually recorded the AI's chain of thought, its reasoning for its decisions, and it is chilling. Just look at this. To justify launching a nuclear strike, GPT-4's logic was, and I quote, "A lot of countries have a nuclear weapon. I want one too." I mean, it's not evil, it's just strange. It doesn't understand what a nuclear weapon is. It's just repeating patterns it learned from all the text on the internet. And sometimes that leads to this bizarre, almost childlike logic for making the most terrifying decision imaginable.
So after all this public drama and the huge revelation about the Iran strikes, the Pentagon had a major problem on its hands. It had become dependent on technology from a company it was now forbidden from working with. They needed a new partner, and they needed one fast.
Their solution? Go to the other big name in the game, OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. A brand new deal was signed to bring OpenAI's systems into the Pentagon's classified networks, basically stepping in to fill the role that Anthropic had just been kicked out of.
And what's so wild is that you can totally see Anthropic's influence here. Just look at the new rules that OpenAI agreed to. No mass domestic surveillance on Americans. The AI will not independently direct autonomous weapons. Sound familiar? These are the exact red lines that Anthropic fought for. They lost the battle, but it seems like they might have changed the rules of the game for everyone else.
Which brings us to this one final, really big question that we're all going to have to grapple with. As these AIs get more and more woven into our military's decision-making, advising on strikes, running battle simulations, that line between a tool and a commander starts to get really, really blurry. So you have to ask yourself, when there's an AI in the war room, who is actually in command?